artBOS. Episode 1. The Art World Lie I Almost Believed. North End, Boston, 2010. The AC in the apartment didn't cool so much as complain. It sat crooked in the window, shoved into place with bent aluminum brackets and hope, rattling like it had something to prove. Every few minutes it would stutter, hum, click, hum, then push out a breath of air that smelled faintly of dust and old pennies. The kind of smell that tells you something once worked properly and never quite recovered. At night, that sound became the apartment's pulse. My room was a twin mattress wedged beside the kitchen, pushed so close to the counter that if my mother opened the fridge too hard, the bed shook. Privacy was theoretical. Sleep was negotiated. The North End doesn't do silence. It archives noise. At 2 a.m, couples argued with windows wide open, their voices ricocheting off brick like they were playing to an audience. Somewhere nearby, a radio played the same classic rock station on repeat. Delivery trucks hissed and idled. Church bells in the Navy Yard were always on time even when no one was listening. Outside, summer pressed itself into every crack. Tourists moved in clusters along the Freedom Trail, matching shorts, matching backpacks, laughing too loud in the narrow cobblestone slots like they were afraid the city might swallow them if they didn't announce themselves. Locals watched from doorways. Bakers smoked between shifts. Old men sat on folding chairs they'd owned longer than their grudges. Everybody clocked everybody. During the day, I painted and pretended rejection letters didn't live in my backpack. At night, I bussed tables at a restaurant just far enough from the tourist traps to feel real, and just close enough to keep the lights on. I was finishing a graphic design course, a plan B that had quietly become my only plan after every traditional art school I'd applied to found a polite way to say no. High school dropout, no credentials, no reference, no chance. All I had was a portfolio that showed hunger but not permission. Plan B always feels like an apology. You don't tell people about Plan A, instead you play pretend. Most nights at the restaurant blurred together. Clatter of plates, silverware scraped clean, the smell of garlic and bleach fighting for dominance. The kitchen barked orders like it was under siege. Waiters would fight with the cooks, and the cooks flirted with the waitresses. The dining room ran on wine and anticipation. That was where I heard it. Not shouted. Not introduced. Just spoken casually. The way people talk about things they assume you'll never comprehend. I was clearing a table in the corner, reaching for empty plates, when the woman leaned in toward her date and lowered her voice, just enough to make it interesting. "He's got a studio up in the North End," she said. I slowed without meaning to. "They say the lines are getting insane," the man replied, excitement flickering between the two. "No internet, no photos." The woman smiled. "You have to see it in person." They didn't say the name loudly. They didn't have to. There was ownership in their tone. Not possession exactly, but power. Like people who talk about a private doctor or a school you can't apply to without already belonging somewhere else. I stacked the plates, wiped the table, refreshed their water. I didn't hear the name cleanly, just fragments, just enough to know it mattered. That was enough to change everything. It followed me home that night, buzzing louder than the city. Followed me through another shift, another night of painting until dawn, another morning pretending I wasn't afraid this was as far as I'd get in life. A few days later, I found myself standing on a side street tourists didn't photograph. The building looked tired in a way I recognized. Brick darkened by decades of weather and breath, windows that didn't advertise anything, no sign. Just a door with peeling paint and rusted hinges that complained when the wind pushed them. The lock was heavy, old, the kind that tells you it's been replaced more than once. I stood there longer than I needed to. When the door finally opened, the smell hit first. Oil paint, dust, something metallic like old water pipes. The air inside felt denser, like it had weight. The studio was chaos pretending to be order. Massive canvases leaned against the walls, thick with color, faces emerging from layers like they'd been fighting to get out. Paint splattered the floor in patterns that looked accidental until you realized they weren't. The artist stood there barely looking at me, almost like he was mute to life. I talked anyway. Too fast, too much. About the schools that wouldn't take me, about bussing tables, about teaching myself, about wanting in, not fame, not money, just a seat somewhere that didn't feel temporary. He listened the way people listen when they've already decided or they're writing the tea and some crazy person is just rambling away. Then after I had run out of steam, he said it. Give up. Not cruel, not angry. Like he was reading the weather and telling me to bring an umbrella. My face must have done something, disbelief, devastation, maybe both, because he paused, let the silence sit long enough to hurt. Then, almost as an afterthought, there's a gallery off Hanover. A woman named Adriana runs it. Tell her I sent you. That was it. No encouragement, no warning, just a redirection, tossed like a bone. I walked back into the street, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Hope, maybe, but what else do I have but obey? Just off Hanover Street, tucked between souvenir shops and espresso machines. Big windows, clean light, brick facade that looked respectable without being intimidating. Inside, everything smelled like varnish and confidence. The bell chimed when I pushed the door open. Hi, honey. Adriana emerged from behind a partition like a firework. Silver bob, oversized jewelry that clinked when she moved, lipstick loud enough to be heard from the sidewalk. I'm Adriana, she said, smiling like we already shared something. How can I make your art day? I told her who sent me. I told her what I did. I told her I was finishing school. She asked what school. When I said graphic design, her face flickered. Confusion first, then calculation, then something like relief. So, she said slowly, you're good with computers. That was how it started. By the end of the conversation, I was an intern. No paperwork, no pay, just opportunity, presented like a gift you'd be rude to refuse. I'll show you everything, she said. You'll even have your own show. My own show? I believed her because I needed to. This was it. That night, back in the apartment, the AC rattled through another losing battle. My mother slept. The neighborhood hummed. I painted until my hands cramped. Somewhere between brushstrokes and dawn, I felt it again. That low vibration under everything. Not excitement, pressure. I didn't know it yet, but the door I thought I'd walk through hadn't opened. It had closed behind me.